Okay, IB Bio students, today we're going to continue with phloem loading, which is still part of 9.2. So the essential understanding here is that active transport is used to load organic compounds, these are sugars, to be more specific it's sucrose, into phloem sieve tubes at the source. So remember that the source is the leaf. So how do we get the sugar that is being produced via photosynthesis at the leaf into the phloem? So the answer is that it depends. Some plants, let me show you this picture here. Some plants can just take that sugar that is being produced at the source, and they can just diffuse that sugar through the companion cells through plasmodesmata. So notice how the sugar is just loading into the phloem through these plasmodesmata connections, and this is what we call symplastic phloem loading, and some plants can do that. Other plants, depending on the plant, they rely on apoplastic phloem loading. That means that the sugar being produced at the source, it needs to be transported into the companion cells, and then it needs to be transported into the sieve tube elements. And in both cases, ATP is needed. So this is what we call active transport or active loading of sugar into the phloem. So this is what we're going to focus on right now. So let's go back to the picture here. And let's focus on apoplastic loading. So here we see a picture of the companion cell. And remember that within the next to the companion cell, you're going to have the, let's say, the leaf or the mesophyll cell. And this is the source, right? And this is where the sugar is being made. So again, we're focusing on apoplastic loading, and that requires ATP. So this is a form of active transport. So we're not really going to be looking at how the sugar can just diffuse through the plasmodesmata. Now we're going to see how that sugar is going to be actively transported through the cell membrane and that cell wall. Okay, so this right here, this right here has been magnified to look like this. Okay, so this is the interior of the phloem, and this is the outside that leads to the companion cell. Okay, so the companion cell is here. So how do we undergo this active transport part? Well, you're going to need two types of proteins embedded here in the membrane. This is what we call a proton pump, and this is what we call a cotransport protein. So aren't proteins cool? They come in all types of modalities here. So ATP is required to take hydrogens from a low concentration inside the phloem, hydrogen ions, to a high concentration here. So when hydrogens are in a high concentration outside in that companion cell side, these hydrogens can now diffuse back through the cotransport protein from areas of high to low, and they release energy. And that energy that they release while they're diffusing back is used to co-transport that sugar. So then this protein is going to be used to diffuse the hydrogens back in and to also move the sucrose into the phloem. Okay, so that's what we refer to as active transport or active loading of that sugar into the phloem. There's another slide in your notes that also shows how sucrose is actively transported. So the same thing I showed you right now, just in different colors, right? So here's the hydrogen being pumped from the inside of the cell to the outside of the cell. So this is the phloem side on the inside. This is the outside. Here are the hydrogen ions, and then they diffuse back in the sucrose co-transporter, or the co-transport protein, and then sucrose is picked up, right? When that hydrogen ion diffuse back in, they release energy, they pick up the sucrose, and then the sucrose comes back in. Okay. But that, again, only happens if it's a form of apoplastic loading, right? Because, again, remember that some plants can just do symplastic loading, which is none of this mess. The sucrose is just transporting or just moves or diffuses via the plasmodesmata. Okay. Next time, we are going to look at what happens with that phloem, or with that sugar once it reaches the phloem, how it actually reaches the sink, and then how water plays a role in that.